So we're back with more from The Defining Decade, written by Meg J., a clinical psychologist who spent years and years of her career and life studying people in their 20s and realized lessons that she could take from them and share with us, which can not only be used for people in their 20s, but for you at whatever stage you're at in your life. So if you want to hear more, go back to the main video named The Defining Decade. But this is going to be the remaining excerpts that I wanted to share with you guys. So if you don't read the book, at least hopefully maybe it helps open your eyes to some new ideas. So we'll start the first one in the preface, page XVI. Researchers in this same study found that most of the substantial and lasting events, those that led to career success, family fortune, personal bliss, or lack thereof, developed across days or weeks or months with little immediate effect. The importance of these experiences was not necessarily clear at the time, but in retrospect, the subjects recognized that these events had sharply defined their futures. Little things add up over time. That's why they say to have discipline. I just saw a cool video, more of an illustration of a ball, a tiny ball butting up against a wall and bouncing back. And over time, the ball got bigger and it kept hitting the wall with no seeming progress, right? Even though the ball is getting bigger, its goal seems like it's not getting any closer to achieving it, right? Because no bricks are falling. So the ball is bigger and it keeps hitting. And eventually the ball gets even bigger. And you think it's going to break it and it doesn't. But then what happens? The ball keeps working at it and it gets so big that it breaks through the wall. And it's kind of like in life. They say you never know how close you are to success or getting where you want because it just takes one day. One day you're not going to be there, or you're not going to have achieved your goal or finish that test or pass the class, but the next day you will. So with anything in life, you need to have discipline and perseverance to push through, whatever your vision is, to continue to push through it. And that's why they say work towards something where it's not necessarily getting there that you care about. It's just that you care so much about it that even if you never got to your goal, you working towards it would be satisfaction enough, because that's what it's going to take sometimes. It's going to take years and years, unknowing if you will actually get there or not. But if you keep pushing, one day you may. Introduction, page XVIII. I am too passionate about the 20s to let Kate or any other 20-something waste his or her time. I have seen countless 20-somethings spend too many years living without perspective. What is worse are the tears shed by 30-somethings and 40-somethings because they are now paying a steep price, professionally, romantically, economically, reproductively, for a lack of vision in their 20s. Now that's one that's going to hit home for any single person, whether it's me or whoever learns a lesson at whatever point they're at in life. Because when I learn something, no matter how young or old I am, I always wish I learned it 5 years back or 10 years back. And that's what I worry about. Some of the things I've learned that I can see there's some other people who may not know it. And I wonder how many people are out there who haven't learned a certain lesson. And although let's say you're 20 or whatever age you are, you may assume someone who's 30 or 40 or 50 may have learned it. But if no one ever taught them and they haven't been experienced to that situation, they may have never learned that lesson. And it almost makes it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you're going to put the person in reality to whatever that lesson is. And the older someone gets, you almost feel bad that they've gone their whole life without understanding a certain topic. So by you telling them, you set them free to live in reality, but you're separating them from their fantasy. And that's kind of what this is talking about for the people who get in their 30s or 40s or later, who finally realize a certain mistake they may have made in their past of how they should be living. And that can be a hard pill for people to swallow. Um, but no matter what the case is, always keep moving forward. You know, don't be too down that you didn't learn a lesson because you know it now, right? You still have years to grow even more. Intro page XIX. Kate wondered whether she ought to spend a few years in therapy figuring out her relationship or to search for who she was. Meg J replies, while most therapists would agree with Socrates that the unexamined life is not worth living, a lesser known quote by American psychologist Sheldon Kopp might be more important here. The unlived life is not worth examining. Page XXIII. Even a new term, immortality, has been coined to describe living the same way at the same pitch from our teens until death. This is a contradictory and dangerous message. We are led to believe that 20-something years don't matter yet. With the glamorization of and near obsession with the 20s, there is little to remind us that anything else ever will. This causes too many men and women to squander the most transformative years of their adult lives, only to pay the price in the decades to come. That's kind of going back with the text a few back. Some people are caught in a trap, a fantasy, or I like to call it fairy tale land, where they're not fully immersed in the reality they should be living, that they know deep down they should be in. And the unfortunate thing is, you're going to stay in there until you decide to come out. So if you decide to keep living a poor lifestyle, whatever that may be, until you're 60, and finally you have this realization of all these things you should have been doing and pursuing, it's not too late, but you're late in the game. And that's what hurts people. And that's what really makes it harder to overcome mentally when you get to that point and you have to live with everything in the past and overcome it. So that term immortality, coined to describe living the same way at the same pitch from our teens until death, that should be an eye-opening message, because I'm sure some people around you, you can see how similar they are year after year. Or maybe you don't see someone for 5 years and maybe you come across them or talk to them and they're exactly the same, right? If we're not growing, no matter how good you are, there's always room to grow. And if you don't want to become a better person, what does that say about you? Why don't you care about yourself enough to want to become better and continue to grow? So if you're staying the same for years and years and years to come, and you're fine with it, self-reflection time, right? Okay, page XXV. Uncertainty makes people anxious, and distraction is the 21st century opiate of the masses. So 20-somethings are tempted and even encouraged to turn away, close their eyes, and hope for the best. We all know about opiates and drugs and how many people do them. And when they talk about distraction being the opiate of the 21st century, I said the last one was deep and eye-opening. This one should be as well, because how many people distract themselves with phones, with drugs, TV, partying, sleeping, going out, and what do all these distractions do? It encourages them to turn away, close their eyes, and hope for the best. Man, that term living in reality, we're all in our own reality, but living in your reality is doing what you know you should be doing deep down, that you truly want to do. You know, I'm kind of trying to sell it like, oh, it's what you want to do, like figure it out and do it. But it's something no one has to convince you or even tell you about. It's something you already know deep down. It's just these distractions that are keeping you away from it. XXVII. Parents like Kate's are so intent on protecting their kids from the regret over settling down too soon that these parents fail to see an entirely new midlife crisis afoot. The post-millennial midlife crisis is figuring out that while we were busy making sure we didn't miss out on anything, we were setting ourselves up to miss out on some of the most important things of all. It is realizing that doing something later is not automatically the same as doing something better. This is another point for making progress and moving forward. But this is a kind of another twist on it. Going back in the other video, we talked about the peers you're around and how they influence you. And this one in particular, parents. Depending on the life your parents lived, they may be influencing you the same way they lived, maybe the way they think they should have lived, or the opposite way. And in this case, it's saying, if they settle down too soon and now they want you to be that outgoing party animal or traveling all over, well, everything comes with a price. Every choice has a consequence and a sacrifice. If you enjoy going out more and doing more of these pleasure-filled activities, well, now you're going to sacrifice your growth mentally and physically, potentially, for your future self. And like it was saying in this case, the parents feel the opposite way. They felt like they sacrificed all their pleasures to grow into a better person. And really, that's up to your life, deciding what you want to do with your years. But I would just remind you that pleasure's perfectly fine. But if you're not wanting to improve and become a better person, if you're throwing that all out the door and never improving and growing, once again, self-reflection, why do you not want to become a better person? Because there's one thing with having fun, and there's another thing with only having fun and going back to what it said before, distracting yourself from growing. Page 15. The one thing I have learned is that you can't think your way through life. The only way to figure out what to do is to do something. So we talk a lot about you need to continue to grow and try to become better. And if you're wondering, what do I do or how do I do it? It's fine to pre-plan certain things or try and brainstorm ideas. But at the end of the day, nothing's guaranteed. You just got to do it. Do something. Anything. Page 17. Yes is how you get your first job and your next job and your spouse and even your kids. Even if it's a bit edgy, a bit out of your comfort zone, saying yes means you will do something new, meet something new, and make a difference. If you've ever seen Yes Man with Jim Carrey, that's an extreme version of saying yes. But watch the movie and look at all the opportunities he was presented with when he began saying yes and how that changed his life. Before I was saying think of an idea and just do it, to progress and get to where you want to be. Well, what happens when you think of an idea and then your brain fills with doubt? You say, no, it might not work. What if it costs money? What if I mess up on this? What if you think of an idea and just say yes and do it? What's the worst that could happen? You improve. No matter how much you fail, if this is your goal and you start here and you end just above it, that's improvement, right? And just like that ball hitting the wall, the more you improve and build on yourself, you'll find months or years later, you'll be up to that point that you thought you couldn't get to. The only truth in that scenario is that you'll never get there if you never start. When you're saying, oh, I don't think I can get there, that's only true if you never start. Page 27. True interconnectedness. Interconnectedness. Let me say that one more time. True interconnectedness rests not on texting best friends at 1 a.m., but on reaching out to weak ties that make a difference in our lives, even though they don't have to. We talked about weak ties and strong ties in the main other video, but truly, Reach out to those people who you really think are going to improve your life. You don't have to cut out the people in your life now or the people who you think are bad influences. All I'm saying is when you start to think about your own growth, you're going to see people differently, and you may open up your eyes to seeing someone who may have been in the shadows before that you never considered to talk to. Page 33. There is a certain terror that goes along with saying, "My life is up to me." It is scary to realize that there's no magic. You can't just wait around, no one can really rescue you, and you have to do something. Not knowing what you want to do with your life, or not at least having some ideas about what to do next, is a defense against that terror. It is a resistance to admitting that the possibilities are not endless. It is a way of pretending that now doesn't matter. Being confused about choices is nothing more than hoping that maybe there is a way to get through life without taking charge. So, when I was reading this, I was thinking more to elaborate more on points we've been saying. It's for people past their 20s who may be listening or reading this book. Think about someone who's 30s, 40s, 50s. It could be someone in their 20s who has kids, a full-time job, a family, right? They're settled. They have established themselves and have set themselves up to live in a comfort zone. Growth may get put on the side burner, right? What if they just keep working at what they have now and stop thinking about how they're going to continue to grow into a better person, whether it's a parent, whether it's with your job? The point I want to make is wherever you're at in life, there's always room to grow. You know, even if someone said, "Hey, I don't want to have a job," let's say you're a stay-at-home parent, and you may be thinking, "Well, there's nothing to advance in my career." Well, look at yourself. How can you become a better parent? How can you become the best person you can be? And that's really the point. If we correlate with this book or tie in, this book is saying, hey, we need to start doing something. We need to grow. And then you tie in the idea that no matter where you're at, whatever stage you're at in life, you can always grow. That's a recipe for endless possibilities, because if you always know you have room to grow and you're always trying to grow and always thinking or just saying yes to growth, there's no wrong with that, right? Any growth is good. But yeah, especially if you're young, remember your life, like it says, my life is up to me. That's the scary thing. No one's forcing you to do anything. You could sit at home, sit on your bed, and stay there for the next year. Lose contact with people, not talk to anyone, eat whatever you want, and no one's going to stop you. What you want, you have to say yes to and begin working towards it. That's the only way to make it, that possibility, a reality. Page 34. Ian hung out with an indecisive crowd. His friends assured him he didn't need to make decisions yet. "We're not," they cheered. They had long discussions on the job about never settling and about never selling out. Yet there they were, settling for underemployment and selling out their futures. I suspected Ian was in my office because somehow he knew these conversations were full of unintentional lies. I like the point where it says unintentional lies, because maybe his friends don't realize the harm they're doing. And maybe it's the choice they want to make, but like we said earlier, every choice has a consequence. And if you're choosing an indecisive path, possibly filled with pleasure, and you're sacrificing your future and your career and maybe settling down with someone for a family, you're going to have to pay that price of living with your choices you've made in the years past. And once again, hopefully move forward from there to your future. But when you're hanging out with people, remember their influence on you is strong. if you're surrounding yourself all the time with an indecisive crowd saying, nah, let's just keep working where we're working, keep doing what we're doing, well, guess what? Years later, you're going to be in the same exact spot. And like I said, what's scary, I think I said in the last video, what happens if that's not where you wanted to be, and now 3 years later, all those friends left, and you're the last one on that path, and now you're stuck there where you never wanted to be because you were following them, and now you're left to live that life alone. Page 37. So this is like the lottery question, he said. It's when you ask yourself what you would do with your life if you won the lottery. Then you would know what you really want to do. So Meg J replies, that's not the right question, I countered. That's not about reality. The lottery question might get you thinking about what you would do if talent and money didn't matter, but they do. The question 20-somethings need to ask themselves is what they would do with their lives if they didn't win the lottery. What might you be able to do well enough to support the life you want? And what might you enjoy enough that you won't mind working at in some form or another for years to come? I like that because, especially when the lottery goes up, you get it up to $1 billion for the jackpot. You always hear, what would you do if you won the lottery? What's the first thing you would buy? What about rephrasing the question, what would you be doing if you didn't win the lottery? And that's kind of how I was mentioning earlier. What would you be willing to work towards your entire life? And whether or not you got to that outcome, it would be worth it just to work towards it because you care about it that much. And when you ask yourself or rephrase that question, what would you do if you didn't win the lottery? If you didn't get all that money or that dream job, that dream place to live, and you're just having to work towards something and really look down deep inside of yourself, that's when you're going to find what to do. And it's just a big switch. If you're one who cares just about the money or just about the image or whatever pleasure-filled delusion you have in your head, begin thinking about what's something you would do if none of that was guaranteed. And that may help you find what you're truly passionate about and willing to work towards. So you saw that was page 37. There's a lot of good information in this book that you may find helpful. These were some of the things that I wanted to talk about for someone if they didn't read the book. At least they would hear these points. But there's a lot of other points in there, such as family, and more about friends, choices you're making, careers. And it's taking her account of all of her studies on real patients over her entire career. So if you like this, check out the other video, read the book. But that's all I'm going to read through right now, because if I kept going, I'd be reading the whole book. So with that, see you in the next video.